Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order tonight's board meeting and committee of the whole meeting. Today is Tuesday, December 18th, 2012. Again, we are at the Village Board Room and ready to go with our meeting. Our first order is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get on with the rest of the board meeting, I would request a moment of silence for the children and the teachers and all those affected. Sandy Hook, Connecticut. What a terrible thing. I think there's not a minute that goes by that anybody on this board, and certainly in town or on our staff, are constantly thinking about the tragedy that unfolded and the loss of life of children, which is not comprehensible. So. Okay, item 3. Kathy, please call the roll.
Mr. Novak.
Present.
Mr. Perry.
Present.
Mr. Sloan.
Present.
Mr. Stecker. Mr. Yurkovich.
Present.
Mr.
Present. Trustee Gustuzo indicated that he would not be in today, and Trustee Stecker will be in, but a little bit late. Item number 4. We have a couple of presentations and actually a swearing in of our newest firefighter, Nick Snavely. Nick, need you to step up front there.
Well, before we swear Nick in, I just want to give you a little background on Nick. He's here tonight with his wife, Rachel, his father, Jim. Unfortunately, his mother couldn't be here this evening. His sister, Leanne, and he has 2 brothers back in Ohio, correct? He was actually born in Berkeley, California, moved to North Canton area, Ohio area when he was a child, where he lived till about 2010 when he relocated to Illinois. 2008, he graduated from Stark College with associate degrees in emergency fire science and emergency medical service. After graduating from college, he worked for the City of Canal, Ohio Fire Department from 2009 to 2010. Along with his Illinois State paramedic license, he holds a National Registry paramedic license, Ohio State Firefighter 2, and hazmat certification, pediatric advanced life support certification, and advanced cardiac life support. Before being hired by the Village of Westchester, Nick worked for First Care Ambulance in Aurora, where he was the Director of Operations and a paramedic. Central DuPage Hospital, where he worked part-time as an ER tech and a phlebotomist. And with the Hinckley Fire Protection District, where he also worked part-time as a firefighter. He looks to be a great addition to our fire department already. He's fitting in real well with the shift he's going to be assigned to, and he will be attending the First Academy starting January 14th and ending in March, where after that, he'll be regular manpower with us. So welcome aboard. Rachel, you get to pin him. So if you stab him in the heart, he's already a phlebotomist.
Thank you. We may have some other presentations as well.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice catch.
Yeah.
That's okay.
That's a good sign to knock the wire stuff off. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations and good work.
I always try and tell you, Mike.
Yeah, I know.
I kicked around, now I'm slapped around.
At least he didn't drop you.
Also this evening, I'm proud to give out some certificates of appreciation to several teenage youth who go to the area high schools who volunteered here over the summer, over 100 hours of community service. On November 27th, each of them were honored by the Sheriff of Cook County. Unfortunately, I was at the board meeting here and couldn't attend. But they all received a Medal of Merit from the Sheriff of Cook County with a host of other children throughout the Chicagoland, Cook County area. And it's a very prestigious award. So I'd like to, Faye's here tonight. I see Juan here, Juan Sepulveda. Saw him. Mike West is here. Alfonso French is here. And Joe Cooley. So why don't you all step up? This year we had a hybrid. We've actually had youth from the village of Hillside and the village of Bellwood assist us. We had a total of 5 this year. They did a great job of doing a lot of painting, did some bridge work, some wire brushing. They worked their tail off for us this summer to make Westchester a more beautiful place, and that's what it's all about. I certainly appreciate all that you've done for the village, and I hope you have your medal and have it on your display case. Proudly present it, because there are not that many out there. I think we've had maybe a host of maybe 6 or 8 over the last couple of years in the village of Westchester. And that's not a whole hell of a lot. I know you were there for seeing Tinley Park. They must have had every kid out there got one. But it's a pleasure to know you guys. It's a pleasure to work with you. And you're a great asset to our community and also your high school. Thank you very much.
Yeah, she's just gonna have to pull up.
Actually, Faye, who was not here today, this is her second. She was here, summer before last as well, and she did a great job for us. Okay, I think we have a reversed presentation from the Aging Care Connection community. I see Bernie is here and a host of Aging Well.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Ken Grunke. I'm from Aging Care Connections. I'm the Director of Philanthropy and External Affairs. And my colleague who's passing out some information about our agency is Linda Hussey, and she's our annual fund coordinator and kind of helps coordinate the Aging Well program as well. So on that note, good evening to all trustees, administration, staff, and of course residents. First, I'd like to start off by saying that on behalf of all of us at Aging Care Connections, we'd really like to thank the Village of Westchester for all that you do for older adults in your community. I can't tell you how much you've been a valued partner to us, and you continue to be, and we very much thank you for your efforts. On that note, we are here tonight to present a distinguished award to recognize the members of the Westchester Community Action Team of the Aging Well program. I'm going to give you a couple of lines about a background of Aging Well. It is a program of Aging Care Connections. It was started about 11 years ago to help create elder-friendly communities throughout the Lyons, Riverside, and South Proviso Township. As part of this movement, community action teams, or as we refer to them now as CATs, were created, and they are consisting of older adult residents, for-profit and nonprofit service providers, and resident advocates in each community, and they are held accountable to help share information about aging, educate the public about aging resources that are currently available to them, and also to help identify aging needs and gaps in each community. Because of the CAT's ongoing leadership, advocacy work, and tireless efforts through Aging Well, each community action team member was recognized for their time, talents, and efforts at the Aging Care Connections annual luncheon. During this event, a traveling trophy was established, and we are pitching it as sort of our version of a Stanley Cup. We need a little bit of work, but that's okay. This was to be passed to each community action team. The hope is that they are to display this award proudly for all to see for one full month throughout their respective community as a representation of the significant value that they bring to older adults and their families. And so tonight, without further ado, on behalf of our board of directors and all of our clients and staff at Aging Care Connections, I would like to present the 2012 Traveling Trophy to Village Mayor Puglia, our Aging Well team leader Bernie Hiles, and also the Westchester Community Action Team.
Thank you very much, Ken. We appreciate that traveling trophy. It's a great honor to have that here in the city of Westchester. And I see the comments up there for 3 minutes, but I had a whole hour speech planned here. I will cut it short, though. I'm sorry Paul is not here. I was hoping that Paul would hear, because he was one of the founders of our Aging Well group here in Westchester and supported it tremendously. And I would just like to say that this award is really a credit to the team. We searched a long time trying to find a team leader until I finally had to accept the position, and it certainly is an honor. And we're doing really a great job with our meetings and with our programs. And I'll have to say one thing before we get started with it. Not only is it a credit to our team, but I, this past fall, celebrated 20 years as a volunteer district coordinator with AERP. My district was DuPage County, which still is, because I came in from Oak Brook, and after my wife passed away, moved into Westchester. But I still maintain the DuPage County as my district. Now, in my 20 years of working with the chapters in DuPage County, this is the only, and I've made a lot of trips to Washington, a lot of them to Springfield with AERP. And I never miss the opportunity to tell them about the Westchester Aging Well group, because it's one of the only groups that I've ever worked with that's had the support of the city. And Paul was wonderful in getting us started and supported, and the same way Sam continues with that. And nothing is more impressive in our committee or meetings monthly to look out in the congregation and see Sam there, or to see some of the people from his various departments. And then also they present programs. What the seniors are looking for is what is going on in the village. And of course that's why it's so important to have the support from the village in our programs and our educational programs. We want to continue doing this. I'm sending out possibly about 120 postcards right now. Our attendance varies. And of course, when you work with seniors, we like to call them mature adults. We spend a lot of time in Washington and Springfield trying to eliminate that senior word. And so now what is the difference between a mature adult and an adult? It's a senior, right? The person with the knowledge and the experience. So what we're trying to do with our programs, and we'll continue to do, is to involve, and certainly, as I say, I can't begin to express appreciation from the village in supporting this organization and this program. Because when people come out to attend a program, they want to know what's going on. And I think one of the most successful programs we've had recently when Sam came in with the electric program. and that really had a lot of good comments. That was very informative, very educational, and that is the name of the game, with our program. So at this time, I'd like to acknowledge our team, if they would come up, please, and stand here. This is our team members, just only a part of them. Some of them couldn't make it. It's sometimes difficult for seniors to come out in the evening. But what I'd like to do, Ken, we could have the trophy then. And to you, Sam, in the village, we'd like to present this trophy to you. It's a traveling trophy, and it will be here for the entire month. And we'll go around the different areas of the village to where the seniors can see it and appreciate it.
We will probably display this at our front counter for everyone to see, and the staff will be apprised of what this is all about, so when somebody asks about it, that we're informed. We try to attend as many meetings that you have. I think one of the last times we had Rob Herber there, our neighborhood watch person, Chief has been there, Janet Mattheis, our village manager, has been there as well, so we certainly see the need to make sure that all of you are informed of what's going on. No secrets there. Okay, thank you.
Can we take a picture of all of you down there, please?
I'm sorry?
We can take a picture of all of you.
Go ahead. Shoot us in the center. How about that?
Oh, sure, that'd be sure.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Ladies, thank you, and have a great holiday. This bench was here for something. Kathy, just to reflect in the minutes when Nick arrived at 12 after. Excellent. Okay, our next item, which I think we already started, was public comments. To give as many visitors as possible opportunity to speak in the interest of adjourning by 9, please limit your comments to 3 minutes in length, unless further time is granted by the board. Comments on active or general matters, please step up, identify yourself for our clerk with a name and address so she can get it in the minutes. We'll go from there.
Good evening. I thought that was a great presentation, and Westchester should be honored to receive that. And those young people are a credit to all of their communities. I'm a frequent person who speaks here, and the last time I spoke, I was commenting on the Westchester Chamber of Commerce luncheon being held outside of Westchester. And it came to my attention that several members of the Westchester village staff attended that luncheon, and I'd like to ask either the president or the village manager, how many employees of the village attended that luncheon on December 4th?
It's 12, right?
We had a table of 12, with the mayor, myself, my department heads, and our nominee for Village Westchester Person of the Year and her caregiver.
Okay. Was one of the attendees the part-time clerk, Celestine Rita?
No, it was not.
Okay. And she did not attend that, or did she not attend as your guest?
She attended the Westchester Chamber. I did see her there, but she was not a village guest.
Okay, and she wasn't at the time on the village payroll when she attended?
No, she was not, sir. Or she is a
Okay.
part-time employee. When she is here working, she is paid hourly, and she punches the time clock in and out.
Okay. Well, I appreciate
And she
that.
had a scheduled afternoon off for that.
Okay. Where would I get the information on the invoice for the payment of that to the chamber.
Well, if you'd like to submit a FOIA request, I'd be happy to give that to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good night and a Merry Christmas to
It's
everybody.
my understanding that Mrs. Rita was attending as a representative of the library board, which I believe you're a member of.
I'm speaking as a private citizen, but I will inform you that she does not represent the library when she attended that function. Library representative is the president of the library, and in their absence, it would be the vice president of the board, which would be me. So if there was anybody who was going to represent the library at that function, it would be a board member, first starting with the board president, then the board vice president. And neither of us were asked to be the representatives of the library at that function. So you are corrected now.
Anyone else?
Good evening, board members. I gave them one card already. This is my first time here. I am a mature senior, and I've been in Westchester for a little while. And I have a concern reference parking. I live on Charles Street, and Charles is one of the short streets in Westchester, right off of Wolf Road. And I got a parking ticket. And because the sign said, park, and I understand it from 11 to 2. My question is there anything that we can do to have a permit or something that we can park during that time? Except on Tuesday, that's when they come, that's when the garbage people come around. Is that a problem?
We talked about that. I thought we
I
talked about
thought
that.
that's what we agreed on, that as long as they had a village sticker,
Yeah.
that
would-
they
This is
were going to be
something
allowed to
in the
park
past.
during that time period.
Yeah, because it was mostly because of the customers of what was Carms.
Mhm.
Because our discussion was whether or not we'd issue another sticker, and I was opposed to spending the money on a new sticker. We just used the village sticker as
Yeah,
the.
I remember
It's the
agreeing about
permit.
that.
Yeah, the
Can
city
I ask,
sticker
do you
was-
have a village sticker on your car?
I have a village sticker on my car, and I also have a parking ticket. I don't mind paying it, it's just that I just want to know if I can or cannot do it. I was under the impression
You
I could if I had a village
That's,
sticker on my
that's
car.
what we,
I thought that's what we agreed on.
I think that's exactly it. So apparently, the information didn't filter down, but the police department will be instructed to honor the village tags as a resident parking. So I think that's what we talked about at the board, so may have fallen through the crack.
Okay, because I did call them, and the guy
Yeah.
said, well, what does the
Yeah.
sign say?
Yeah.
No parking. I said, okay. Okay,
So,
thank you for that.
Um,
My other question is that I've been on Charles Street for about 13 years, and the roads are very, very bad over there. Of course, it's a short street because I imagine because we're one block off of Wolf Road and because of the restaurants over there that's in the hillside area. And one of my neighbors has been there, she said at least over 30 or 35 years, and no one has come through there to fix that particular road. And I was wondering how we would go about getting that road and Hinderen Road fixed. I know it might be a conflict because of Hillside and Westchester right next to each other in that little area.
our Public Works Director is in the process of making an assessment of all the roads. So I don't know where he is on your particular street, but I think at this time there are more that are like yours than that are not like yours. So Dave is working on that, and he could speak a little bit to that as well.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, thank you
Sam.
very much.
What should she do for the ticket?
No, just turn that into the police chief, and that'll be it.
Okay.
That's one of the ones you just fell through the cracks, so I apologize for that.
Thank you very much.
Quite welcome.
Yeah.
My name is Neil Agner. I'm a Westchester resident, and wanted to talk tonight about the donuts that's going in over at 31st and Wolf there. My son, when we drove by, I told him what they were building there, was super pumped that new Dunkin' Donuts is going up, and then he said, "Oh, it'd be great. We could ride our bikes up here to get donuts." But then I looked at the sidewalk situation, where no sidewalk goes to the Dunkin' Donuts. You basically have to cut through the parking lot or so. And then I remember back when that was vacant, and I used to run over that area and come back from the Forest Preserves up in that area. There was always a sidewalk coming up Wolf Road. I don't think there ever was anything on 31st Street. But it seems that the village allowed it to be compromised, that there's zero sidewalks in front of that establishment at all. On 31st, right when you hit that property, the new construction, and on Wolf, right when you hit the property, it kicks you out on Wolf Road or 31st Street. There's no way to get around that corner without cutting through a parking lot or a drive-through lane. It just seems kind of myopic or short-sighted to how that area is going to be used by the residents, people traveling from the Forest Preserves or through 31st Street to leave them where you're stuck on this busy road. And 31st Street in general, that intersection in general seems really poor in the fact that it goes from a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit down to a 35, which people are still going 45, 50 miles an hour down 31st Street, all the way until you get to where that bike path area is. Yeah, I know that that area, the Salt Creek Trail, the Greenway Trail, and everything is very busy on the weekends with bike riders, people running all up and down, but nobody's going to venture off that stretch to come into the Westchester area to grab, coffee or something at the McDonald's if there's no easy way of getting from A to B, getting from the Salt Creek Trail into that area. And here we are, we got new construction going in with great new business coming in, and we missed the boat as far as like making it pedestrian, cyclist friendly. It's great if you want to roll up in an SUV and grab a Dunkin' Donuts, but if you want to come on foot or on bike, it's near impossible, or you're taking your life in your own hands.
Yeah,
So that's my complaint. We made room for a drive-through, but we didn't make room for a walk-through.
And then I had the same concern
Okay.
when I saw the work and toward its finality, and checked with staff, and there was a staff change between Melissa, who's our new building person, and before. So I reached out to them and I said, well, what happened? Why is there no sidewalk? And I was told by the former person that it wasn't in the ordinance required. So I said, well, how could that be? Because there was a short sidewalk there. It wasn't a 5-foot sidewalk like in other places, but there was a little bit of a sidewalk, and people used to traverse through the gas station. I mean, that's what they did on the 31st side. You're exactly correct. There was nothing there. They came through the gas station if they wanted it at all. I know Melissa and I have had conversation relative to that, who's right here. And I think we're going to, we've asked the gentleman who's building it to construct a sidewalk. That's in the discussion phase right now. But I think there's probably 2 feet on the Wolf Road side to put some kind of carriage walk. And
So I noticed this a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
After school one day, I picked my son up, we were rolling around, and we saw this, and I've been thinking about this nonstop since then. I draw a strong correlation with how that intersection is laid out and how the one at Roosevelt and Wolf is laid out. They put that new Dunkin' Donuts in there. That's on my daily route, so I see that. I've observed near misses at that intersection, especially with kids, people are walking, and cars pulling in and out of there. It seems like that whole section of Wolf Road, the entrance and exit of that facility on Wolf Road should be eliminated entirely. It's going to be insane with people trying to pull. They just got a green light going north on Wolf Road, and they're going to make a right-hand turn right into that Dunkin' Donuts there, and the same for traffic trying to get out.
I know.
Is it going to be a right-hand turn lane only, or are people going to be able to do whatever they want? It's so close to where that intersection takes place.
I don't know
It
exactly.
seems like it's poorly laid out.
Yeah.
Pedestrian
The only thing I could say is that the owner of that property had to contact IDOT in the county, because county's on one side and IDOT's on the other side.
Wolf Road side is the Westchester side, right? 31st Street is the county side?
No. That's 31st Street is ours as well, to the middle. And with
The county's responsible for the street.
county's responsible for Wolf, state is responsible for 31st. They do the plowing, they do the maintenance, or whatever.
From the curb inward is Westchester property. No?
Well, in all honesty, the last maps that I saw, the property owner at one point owned land into the middle of the street. Because on the other side, like by the Citgo, and you go a little bit further down, the Forest Preserve District owns to the middle of the street. So, I mean, they applied for whatever permits they had. They had to explain the curb cuts, and, you know, they allowed that as well. So, I mean, I don't want to say we're stuck with it, but for right now, we're just going to have to monitor it like we have the other Dunkin' Donuts over on Devonshire.
There's no ordinance on sidewalks need to be in place, anything like that. So if I wanted to get rid of the sidewalk in front of my
No.
house, I could extend it out and make it a soccer field? Or
No. You know what? It's a mystery to me. All I'm telling you is that's what I was told, and maybe Melissa has some more information on that, but I was told that it wasn't required, because I had the same concerns as you. Should have been a sidewalk all the way around it from 31st to Wolf Road. Should have teed it in, just like it was any other sidewalk.
Had to change the parking lot, or
Yeah.
the drive-through would have been so wide. Because you look at where the Taco Bell is, 20 feet to the north of
Right.
that place, and there's plenty of room for a drive-through, but the Taco Bell is, you know, you wouldn't have had 5 buildings wide, it would have been 4. And
Yeah.
everything would have fit just fine. Yeah, it just seems like a really bad situation for pedestrians and cyclists are.
Yeah. Maybe Melissa could shed some
Right, yeah.
light on it from the building department that I'm.
I did look at the issue of the sidewalks, and I couldn't find anything in our code that required for new developments to install them. So I believe that that was why they weren't required at the time of permitting. I think they looked at the fact that they probably saw it as not being a high pedestrian traffic location. I don't think that there's any bike paths or anything within the Wolf Road Prairie, which would be what would connect along 31st.
People come off Wolf all the time. It's getting off Wolf Road and onto that tract of land. You wind up. So if I was coming up Wolf Road, I run it a lot. Like rather than having to double back on the Salt Creek Trail, you take a different route. You come back 31st Street, you run up Wolf or something like that. Run or bike. You're running onto once you get onto Wolf Road north of 31st, you're on the street until you get onto the sidewalk by where the Taco Bell is. That's where the sidewalk picks up again. It's like just this stretch of property is the only stretch all the way up Wolf Road from 31st all the way up to St. Charles or Penn's. This one little business development is the only section that does not have sidewalk.
Well, I think on the Wolf Road side, I don't think they had a full sidewalk. I think they just had like a 2-foot carriage walk that was right along the back of curb.
Well, because back in the day it was a gas station apron where it was an all open area. Now there's a drive-through lane where that apron was. So if I was going to come onto Wolf Road and go in that area, that stretch that's open, now I'd be walking into a drive-through traffic. People trying to pull through donuts and whatnot. So I'm forced out onto Wolf Road until I get to a safe zone where I can hop onto a sidewalk. So if I'm walking down the street with my son to go to Dunkin' Donuts, we're walking into a drive-through lane as opposed to walking on a sidewalk or biking. That's the part that just unappealing to me.
You're correct. There's no sidewalks that are along this development. They weren't required at the time that they came in for permitting. I believe one of the other issues that they probably believed was that the fact that with that carriage walk along the back of curb it was probably unsafe because it was only about 2 feet wide for pedestrians to be traveling along a high traffic, high speed roadway. So I think that may have been one of the reasons that they told the developer that they didn't require it.
Let me ask this, is it possible to, in that little grassy knoll between the curb line and the, I guess the parking stop, that's possibly able to be paved or concreted? I mean, it'll be a short walk, but it won't be a full walk. It won't be dirt, correct? Is that able to be done?
Right now what's proposed, I think, is just sod, but yeah, there would be room for a sidewalk to be installed there.
It's probably about 4.5 feet wide and 5 feet. I mean, it's considerable amount of berm.
I'm saying, if you know what I'm talking about, the curb line to the parking block or whatever.
Yeah, but the big issue is the curbs are like these big, gigantic 9-inch curbs that are up on there. So it would have to be a brand new curb cut to bring it down to a level. Someone in a wheelchair, someone with a walker would be able to navigate that section without jumping off a 9-inch curb on the ground.
Come over to
staple,
top.
staple things. That area, I mean, even if you were going to commit yourself to riding on that berm, the curves, there's such a huge drop off up in between this that it wasn't meant to be walked through at all.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Did you say that we're continually talking to the developer?
I believe Melissa has had some conversation with him as well.
So maybe this could be
So.
taken up with the developer
Yeah.
to see if there's anything that could be done,
So,
you know?
well, we'll look into it. I
So
mean,
in the
it's
meantime, I
there.
can't tear my sidewalk out in front of my house.
You can't do that. So,
My wife will be happy.
all right. All right, thank you for coming in. Anyone else? Okay, item 6, I don't believe we have any public hearings. I think we have Mike West. He snuck in at the end here. Why don't you step up for a second? I don't know if you want to stay for the whole meeting. You certainly are able to. Present this to you for your help in doing the seasonal stuff last summer, the sheriff's medal. Hope you're able to get put on the sheriff and get that medal. Unfortunately, we had a board meeting and was unable to attend. But I do want to thank you and thank all the rest of the group for all their hard work. We really appreciate it. Okay, consent agenda, I through J. Does anyone need anything pulled?
A through J.
A through J, I'm sorry. Brian?
Item I, please.
Aye. Okay. Anyone else? Nothing. Okay. Is there a motion and a second to approve items A through J with the exception of I at this time? Motion by
So moved.
Tommy. Second by
Second.
Nick. Kathy, call the roll, please.
Mr. Novak?
Aye.
Mr. Perry?
Aye.
Mr. Sloan?
Aye.
Mr. Stecker?
Aye.
Mr. Yurcich?
Aye.
Mr. Toledo?
Aye. Motion carries. Item number I. Is there a motion and a second for approval? Motion by
So moved.
Tom, second
Second.
by Wally. Item I is the ordinance authorizing the issue of not to exceed 10 million in general obligation bonds, sales tax, alternate revenue source for certain public infrastructure projects. Brian, comments?
Yeah, this not to exceed $10 million is based on going out to bond the full anticipated revenue for the sales tax, which I think, as we previously discussed, going out with something less than that. And looking back at our previous bonding for streets, when we went out with the MFT funds, we were initially estimated to bring in $500,000 of revenue a year with the MFT funds. We're currently in the $406,000 and $408,000 for 2012 and 13. Our debt service was estimated to be $250,000 a year, and we're currently at $273,000 with 2013 anticipated to be at $297,000. Those numbers represent 18 and 19% deficits in revenue and 9 and 19% increases in expenses, which roughly translates to 16 and 19% deficits in available funds. Basically, we've got estimates out there for the anticipated revenue. Our history shows that we're not going to get the numbers that have been presented to us, and I think it's irresponsible to go out and authorize an ordinance looking to issue bonds to the maximum amount when the proven history says that that's not where those numbers are going to fall. And we have no way of paying for it if we were to issue these bonds. We have no way of paying for making up that difference of the deficit of the 19%. in the case of the MFT funds, the initial request was to bond out the entire revenue. And, you know, if it wasn't for the two finance guys on this board arguing otherwise, that's what it would have gone out at. And luckily we didn't, because we have that cushion to be able to pay for that those shortfalls. If we go out and bond the full amount on this, we're not going to have the money to pay for these shortfalls. So I think it's, you know, I think it's irresponsible to go out there for the full 10 million. We're already operating at a hundreds of thousands of dollar deficit, and you know, we haven't stopped the bleeding and the spending, and so we're not going to have something out of our general fund. We're not going to have the funds available to cover any shortfall. So I'm opposed to issuing an authorization at this dollar amount.
Gina, any comment?
Yes, I just want to clarify that this ordinance is only an authorizing ordinance. This does not mean that the village is going to issue $10 million of general obligation bonds at one time. And it is not the intent to do so at this time. We can issue any portion of that 10 million in an individual bond issue. And we're waiting to see where our street survey comes in and the engineering costs to determine potentially what the issuance would be for 2013.
It's still an irresponsible step. So whether you want to say we're going to take out $5 million next year, $5 million the year after that, to fully utilize the anticipated revenue in a single authorization, to me, is irresponsible.
Wally, do you have a comment?
No, I was under the assumption too that, you know, we're not issuing $10 million. I thought what we originally talked about on this board was to, because I think what Brian said is, you know, this is based on the full 660-something thousand. And I find it hard to believe that we'll get it, but I thought this, you know, we were talking more half-ish, you know, about issuing that. But I was, and Jenny said, we're not authorizing $10 million. To me, it's kind of an open item here that we can issue up to, but it would have to be the board's discretion.
Right.
So we would be able to police it.
Oh, sure. We're going to decide on this board what amount you're going to bond for. The initial was 8 million. We could maximize it going to 10, but maybe we weren't even going to go to 8.
Yeah, I'd
So,
like to, yeah,
all
before we
depends.
do anything, I'd like to see the revenues, make sure that they are what they claim that they're gonna be, and then also see a plan, you know, before. I wasn't for a wholesale $10 million bond, but I understand that it's just a.
Mike, is this authorizing ordinance is good for a period of 3 years? Is that my understanding?
So,
I mean,
that
as
was
long
the
as we're
thought.
not, I agree with Nick's concern too, and I had the discussion with you, Janet, that, I mean, I don't want to bond out without knowing the actual numbers of what we're
Right.
getting in.
Yeah, Dave is working on that street survey right now, and then we'll have it engineered, and then we would know how much we would be looking for our 2013 project.
This would also fully utilize any bonding authority we have for that fiscal year.
That's
the total
of your non-taxable bonds, yes.
Right, but again, there is no current intent to issue for 10 million.
I understand, but this is authorizing, this authorization stands for 3 years. So you're authorizing in this year to fully utilize all of our bonding power. So if something else were to come along that we, needed to bond out, you've already used your authorization in this bonding authorization.
Like, it's issuance, we're limited to issue bond of 10 million annually.
Yes, can only issue. This is authorizing, but there's a second step, which is the actual issuance of the bonds, and you need to determine out of the 10 million authorized how much your revenue stream can support. And I don't believe you've got that information in front of you yet, and you're not in the process of actually selling bonds. You haven't made a determination as to that?
Okay, I'm a little confused here.
So am I.
My simple mind is saying 10 million, you could issue up to $10 million on these bonds. Brian, what I'm hearing you say though is we have a need to issue out of the water fund for something. Something comes up and we have the ability, we have a revenue stream. So we've passed this $10 million. Now we need to issue something out of the water fund. We can't because we've maxed out our 10 million.
It depends on what you actually issue.
But
my point is, you're already authorizing it.
It's based on what you issue, not what you authorize to issue.
Right.
The maximum amount of money that you.
But we're only allowed 10, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
So regardless for what project, you're only allowed 10.
Right, yeah,
Per year.
I'm a little, sorry, but I was a little confused on, I thought you could issue 10 million, you could authorize 10 million, but you're based on what you issue. So
Mhm.
if you issued $2 million out of the 10, and then something else came up in a separate fund, water, or we had to do, we could still.
You'd have 8 million
You have another,
So
yeah.
10 million is a cap.
It's 10
on
million
all
cap.
funds.
per year.
Okay.
So
Yep.
your maximum is 10.
Doesn't mean we're gonna.
No.
No.
No,
Your maximum is 10. It gives you the ability, if you need it, to not have to go out and do the reauthorization again for, say we had 8 and we used 8 and we needed 10. You'd have to do reauthorization for 2. So, and this is per year, 10 million, that you have the authorization for.
You
That's
can
all we
issue
can-
up to 10 million a year, tax-free.
this
Yes.
is
But we-
And the point is, if the anticipation is we're not going out for 10 million, then why are we authorizing 10 million?
So that we don't have to go through the authorization process again.
And this is a
in the
difficult
subsequent
process? We're taking 2 seconds to vote on something, and that's a difficult process?
year. No, there is a cost associated with it with our financial advisors and with our legal team.
That you're going to incur when you issue the bonds. Regardless if you issue it once or twice or 3 times, you're going to incur those costs.
But we would have additional costs for another authorizing ordinance.
Is everybody clear?
Not really, but.
I'm pretty sure we can use a template. We've done this before.
Question, Frankie?
How hard is it to do what Brian's saying? What are we talking about monetarily to reissue?
I don't know what bond council's fees would be for an individual ordinance, but
Are you talking about issue authorizing?
Authorizing.
There's 2 separate issues,
I know.
issue and authorized. So I think what Brian's saying is, you authorize 5 million, you come back and authorize another 5 to get
Yes.
to 10 million. So what would be the additional cost of going through and saying, we authorize, not issue?
And why is there a cost to issue another ordinance when you just be copying the same ordinance that you're currently authorizing if you authorize it for 5,000? If you need the additional authority after you do the street study, you're just going to you're going to issue another identical ordinance for it and fill in the new dollar amount.
it's not an ordinance that I'm drafting. I want to make that clear. That's bond counsel that would be doing that. I don't know if there had to have been a determination made by staff that the prior $8 million authorization, that, remember, this is a redo of that, should be increased to 10 million. There had to have been some thought process put into that to increase it from 8 to 10, because otherwise we were at 8 before. So I'm not certain if this is an argument of the difference between 8 and 10 or between any number and 10, because we had previously passed an authorizing ordinance for $8 million that we didn't go and publish, and the thought was to redo that ordinance based on the adoption of the non-home rule sales taxes and a timely publication closer to the passage of this ordinance tonight. We would then publish. But remember, we had an $8 million authorization before. So, I mean, if there's some retrenching about that number, it in my opinion, shouldn't be below 8 million. That's what everybody had approved before, so.
Right. We had revised financial summaries done by our financial advisor, Kane McKenna, given the current interest rates, various maturities, and the estimated revenue. Their maximum bond issue, given the estimated 630, was 10,875,000. I polled the board, and the majority of the board agreed to go from 8 to 10 million. So that's why the authorizing issue was increased to 10 million, so that we didn't have to go back and do another authorization for the second year of the road projects. And obviously, we're going to consider our revenue. The revenue will start to be collected January 1st. We should see our first receipts from the state probably by April. Generally, the vendors have a month to submit their tax. It takes the state a couple of months to distribute that to us. So beginning probably in April, we will have an estimate of what our monthly revenues are going to be for this. And since that non-home rule sales tax was restricted for these types of improvements, that's why that amount was used to determine the maximum bonding.
I've got one more question. Do we lock in on that interest rate?
No, we won't lock in
No,
on
not
anything
until the
until we go
bonds
to
are
issue
sold.
the bonds.
Right, to issue is when you lock it on your rate. It's like a loan, you know, when you
Okay.
lock it on.
So one more time, what's the advantage of taking the 10 million?
It's just authorizing us. We probably, I think our 2011 road program was about 5,875,000. Is it approximately 5.5 to 6 million that we spent on roads? So depending on the next set of streets that are engineered, we determine which streets we're going to do in 2013. If we decide that it's 5.5 million, then we'll go for a bond of 5.5 million, which then would be presumably 55% of that 630 revenue that we're expecting.
Okay.
And we would have, you know, surplus revenue then that would be in a restricted account only to be used for road improvements.
I guess the way I look
And
at it is,
infrastructure.
we're saying up to 10, it's up to the board to tell you how much you want to
Right.
issue. And then that's where you get to the nitty-gritty conversation of, is it 4 million, is it 6 million, is it 7 million, you know, whatever you want to issue. That's the way I look at it. This is just saying, it's like a letter of credit, $10 million letter of credit. Now, what do you want to draw on? I guess.
So it's going to be based on whatever projects is how much money that we'll bond out for.
Yeah, but if I understand it, there was an analysis done that by Kane and McKenna that instead of issuing 8, you could support 10.
Right.
In fact, you could support more than 10, but you're limited to 10 million,
Was this
so.
over a 20-year period?
Yes, the 10,875,000
Yeah.
is 20.
So I mean, there was a basis for increasing it from 8 to 10. Now, that's up to the board to decide whether, you know, they, number one, want to authorize an increase from 8 to 10. And then secondly, you'll have to decide whether you want to use your full bonding authority when you go to issue those bonds. So,
You know, one other item just to note is that when you look at the amortization table, it's over a 25-year period. You know, you're tying future boards' hands for 25 years if you bond out every penny of this revenue.
Is it the 10 million at 25?
Pardon?
Were you saying
The 10 million is based on 25 years.
That was 20 years.
Sorry, maybe I was.
So, you know, and I think if you look at what we did with the MFT funds, we took half of it for 20 years. When we bonded out for the water fund, we took the funds from that we anticipated from the water meters, and we bonded out for 10 years. You know, we took a more conservative approach. I mean, this you're putting everything, all your eggs in one basket. And if you were to authorize this, in issuance for this, 25 years, future boards their hands are tied. There's going to be no money to maintain these streets. Whereas if you go in with half, you'll have the other funding that we can use for infrastructure, which includes maintaining the streets. You're going to have the funds to maintain them as well. Right now, you're not going to have those funds.
I think that's what the 8 million was based on the 20-year term. I think that's where
It might have been based
So
on a
then
shorter
it's-
year.
I mean, I'm all right with the 20 years, 25. You know, I'm not all, you know, I would rather go with the original 20-year that we came up with. Because then that also screws up potential future bonding and future payments if you want to go further, if you get new sources of revenue. That extra 5 years.
So, with all that being said, I guess
I didn't know it was 25.
what I'm hearing here is that that the board is more comfortable with the 8,000,020 than the 10,000,025. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm comfortable with the 8 million, the 20.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
Is that where we're at since we're going around the horn?
I mean, and again, I'm looking at, I just pulled up the 20-year schedule. This looks like total uses of 9 million, so I'm not sure if we were looking at the,
I think.
Yeah,
I
I'm not
think
sure.
we need better numbers here because it seems like we've got a few floating around here. I'm okay with a 20-year schedule. That seems to be a standard. You know, I just hate tying up money more longer than that. If it's 8 or 9 million, so be it. I'm okay with that.
Okay. Let's get back to the question.
Plus
Are you comfortable with a 20-year out?
With a 20-year out.
20-year out
But
than
as
25?
presented, we're 25.
Correct.
But I'm saying you just, I mean, just to change the numbers, that's all. Because 20 years, I think, is a $9 million one, isn't that correct?
but that's still fully utilizing 100% of projected revenue.
But that's if you,
No, Janet, no?
if you have the project to
Only if
to
we
go.
issued.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Only
again,
if we
that's-
issue.
Only if you issue it.
It's up to the board to decide what we're issuing.
Right.
The 630,000 is obviously an estimate. It was an estimate provided by the State Department of Revenue, given our current sales tax numbers. So, financial advisors feel it's a very fair estimate. Obviously, we would not issue capacity and overextend ourselves over that amount, but as you said, as early as April, we'll know what our returns are gonna be and see if that estimate is accurate.
I think what.
And we can't wait till April to do the boost.
You mean the vote?
Well, we're trying to have this ready so that we can start our road improvements in early spring.
Right, but we're not gonna see any revenues from till April, so we're gonna have to bond out prior to that anyways, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
So you're gonna bond out not knowing what we're coming in on.
Correct.
It'd be a conservative.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be a conservative one
So-
until we see the revenue.
So when you're thinking about what you want to bond out, that's where you have the opportunity, 8, 9 million. Now, you have to decide.
Right, not knowing.
My nut's gonna be 4 million, that's, you know.
And our
Right,
first debt
And
service
isn't that
payment
when
wouldn't
you're
be
gonna
for 6
determine
months.
what the amortization period is when you do the issuance?
Right.
You're gonna decide whether you're gonna do
Yeah,
a
but
smaller issue for
the time-
25 years or for 20 years
Yeah,
or
but
a
you're also
larger
looking-
issue.
This is based on 25. So if you say $10 million, you can't say, oh, I'm gonna bond out $10 million at 20 years. It's not gonna happen.
Because we already passed
Right,
it for
'cause
25.
It says 10 million at 25. That's, even if you came in dollar for dollar what you're getting, if you vote on $10 million for 25, you can't go and say, no, I'm gonna change it to 20.
And I think my point is you've got.
25 years? I'm not seeing that in the ordinance.
Brian was.
That's your revenue stream, isn't it?
That's what the $10 million is based on. If
Right,
you
but
look
I
at the
mean, that's
forecast.
supporting documentation as to what you could borrow 10 million and pay it off over 25 years.
And my point was, you know, at least mine is, I'm not comfortable with a 25-year period. I'm only comfortable with it, 20, because I think that 5 it screws you up when you're going for future bonding down the years. That's where this 20-year period, I think, conversation started. Now, I think Brian said either 8 or 9 million.
But it's not in the authorizing ordinance. So you could authorize 10 million and amortize it over 5 years. And have a
No, you can't,
huge-
'cause we don't have the
I mean,
revenue stream.
I said that wrong. You could authorize 2 million and amortize it over 5 years.
Well, I think we're
And
saying
maybe
that.
get away with that, with the
Right.
support. But that's all to come. That's not this ordinance.
But you're
here.
asking an authorization of $10 million. What's a
I'm
$10
not
million based
disputing
on?
that. If you
The
guys
$10
wanna-
million is based on the amortization
If you
table.
want to change it to 8, if you want to change it to 7.5, or whatever, that's your call.
I'm saying whatever the projected revenue is over a 20-year period is what I'm comfortable with it, of saying that's the dollar amount to authorize, not to issue, but to authorize.
And I don't know if the manager's got that number tonight, do you?
Brian, do you
Do you
have
know
that
what a
on your
20 million would
One
support,
comment,
or
when
a
you,
20-year would support?
when you look at what we did 2009 or 10, whatever that year that was, when we did half of the MFT funds, we authorized, I think, 5 million and got 3.2 or something like that. If we authorized 5 million, if we did a 5 million tonight, it would, the amortization for using half the revenue over 20 years is 4.6 million. If we authorized the full amount over 20 years, it's estimated at 9.3 million.
Of actual coming in.
So I think that's what you had in the sheet, that it was 9 million for 20 years, 8 million for 15, I believe, and then 10 million for 25.
7.2 for 15. So I guess my point is that I think we should be looking closer to the $5 million mark, where you're using half of the funds over the 20-year period is what I was just talking about. And, you know, if we need to go back out, we have that ability to do so. But I just don't see the point of authorizing it, you know, the full balance. And especially when the last estimates that we were given, when we went out to bond last time, were off by 20%, 19%.
Well, my big fear is that we're not going to be able to do as many roads as we want to do, and we all know that the roads are horrible. Dave's been looking at certain streets, marking them, taking measurements, trying to save money, doing some stuff in-house and that. But
You
make
have
no
to be able to
mistakes.
maintain them once you rebuild them, and we don't have the funds to do that.
No,
This, by bonding out half, you would then have the additional funds to be able to maintain the new streets. You're not
But
gonna
I'm
have
not sure
any-
what you're gonna get with that scan amount of streets. I mean, we did $5 million, we didn't get that many done, that I would have liked to seen done, based on the costs.
But I think, again, what we're saying, we're gonna authorize this, when it comes back to, I wanna do 2 million or 5, that's where the board discussion begins.
Right.
How much you want to
do
issue,
every year, right.
and what we could afford to issue, and what we could afford to pay. You know, that's where I think the discussion comes.
But you're also talking, as Janet just told Tom, we're talking about issuing bonds before we have the revenue. Because if you want to do the streets in the spring, we have to issue bonds before we get the revenue reports after the first quarter.
But I think what we're issuing it is, we are issuing, but we're not spending it.
Right, but no,
No,
this
we're-
is authorizing. When you
Oh,
issue,
oh,
when you issue the bonds,
Understand
we're
that.
still, the plan, as they just explained, is still going into a blind.
Right, but all we're doing is authorizing right now.
No, I understand that. But one, you're getting, you know, it's starting off on the wrong steps and are saying $10 million. But second, you're saying, oh, let's wait until we actually issue them. Yet in the next sentence it says, well, yeah, we're still going to issue them blindly because we're not going to have the reports yet to know what the revenue is.
But I think when you issue the dollars is when you're going to discuss, that's where the board discusses how much dollar amount you're talking about. You know, if we said $8 million authorized, and in January, we're discussing issuing $8 million, I tell you, my vote's no right then and there, because we don't even know dollar from donuts, and I hate to use that, but what money's coming in. So, you know, there's discussion that has to be done. I mean, I think we're just authorizing it at this point.
I think that's what the
And clearing
question
the
was,
path
to
to issue.
authorize it at this point, and then the board will discuss, based on whatever cost estimates Dave has, what we can afford and what we need to try to fix. They're out there. You just had the young lady here talk about Charles Street and Hydorn. And, I mean,
you know,
there's a million of them out there that are terrible.
I know there's a million streets, and, you know, but the point is, what can we afford? And we've always discussed that.
Yeah.
You know, you have great streets, but if we got nobody to fix them, you're still gonna spend a lot of money, and you're gonna end up in 2 years with terrible streets again. So, you know, that's where I think the discussion comes in, is what are you gonna issue? And what could you afford? And you gotta put all these things in place. Not only do we afford new streets, yeah, we could put all brand new streets, use up $8 million, and I always say, we're gonna have to lay off people to get more money to fund the debt. And you don't wanna be in that situation.
We're already at the 8 million, correct?
You know, you had previously passed the same type of ordinance
Right.
that said $8 million.
Right.
So
The last
we just
meeting.
leave it.
So just leave it.
Well, the last meeting, the discussion was, we need to pass that ordinance a second time, because we didn't go out for publication because of the redo on the referendum. And if the referendum didn't pass, it made no sense spending the money for the newspaper publication, because you weren't going to issue bonds. So now that that's passed, bond counsel said, just redo the ordinance, pass it again. The question became, should we change this from 8 to 10? So to get back to the status quo, this, at a minimum, has to be passed for 8 million. So
I'll
what
amend
you
it
do
to 8
between 8
million.
and 10, that's all new business, so.
Yeah. If we can go back to 8, I think we
Yeah.
had the board's,
I would do it.
you had a consensus of the board previously on 8 million. We're gonna have, I'm sure, more discussion when it comes actually time to go out to issue, but.
All right, so we'll reflect that as an $8 million.
Do we have a mover and a seconder on this?
Yeah, there's,
Yeah.
Could we have a motion to amend the,
Tom and Wally.
Tom and Wally.
the motion is presented to change the 10 million to 8 million everywhere that it's reflected in the ordinance. Bond counsel will then draw up a new ordinance. And I'm going to stick my neck out here and say that they probably won't charge anything extra. They're still getting their fee out of issuing a bond. So
So moved on the 8 million.
8 million everywhere it says
Wally
10.
again?
Yep.
All right, so let's keep it consistent, Tom and Wally. Okay.
On the motion to amend, you need a roll call vote. That's just the motion to amend. Then we'll consider the main motion.
Mr. Perry?
Aye.
Mr. Sloan?
Nay.
Mr. Stecker?
Aye.
Mr. Yurkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Novak?
Aye.
Mr. Fulia?
Aye.
Now you need to call the roll.
Motion and a second for-
Well, you already had that motion in second. You got an amended main motion. This ordinance would be adopted at $8 million.
There you go.
So now we're voting on
The actual issuance of the ordinance, the ordinance itself. But
the
it
actual
should,
ordinance on the authorization.
yes, sir. Everywhere in the ordinance that you have in front of you, change 10 to 8, that's what you're voting on, not the issuance.
Go ahead, Ken.
Mr. Sloan?
Nay.
Mr. Stecker?
Aye.
Mr. Yurkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Novak?
Aye.
Mr. Perry?
Aye.
Mr. Fulia?
Aye, motion carries. Okay, item number 8. 8A, resolution authorizing village manager tender withdrawal notice to Irma for beginning 2014.
Yes, speaking with Irma's legal counsel after the last meeting, you did pass a motion for me to tender this notice to Irma, but they do require a resolution of the board, so that is why that. And also just wanted to let the board know that there is a 45-day rescission period once we tender this notice. So we will be getting bids, and we will have to make a decision at our second January board meeting regarding our risk management services.
And is it your plan to have alternate coverage companies, information to us of what they're doing, how?
Yes. We will try to, I don't know if we can get something in, we won't have something for the first January meeting, but on the second January meeting, and then we will have to have a firm decision by our first meeting in February, or we will not make the 45-day rescission period.
Okay, so we have 45 days to decide whether to stay or go. Correct?
Yes.
So moved.
Any other discussion? Motion?
Motion, sorry.
Frank,
Second.
Excuse me.
Nick? Kathy, the roll, please.
Mr. Stecker?
Aye.
Mr. Yurkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Novak?
Aye.
Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Mr. Sloan?
Aye.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye, motion carries.
Who did the motion, Nick?
I did.
Frank and Nick.
Frank and,
Frank and Nick,
Frank
sorry.
made it, Nick second.
Okay, let's see. Item number B, resolution approving the 2013 annual meeting schedule of the Board of Trustees. Motion a second.
So moved.
Second.
Tom? Frank? All those in favor of the meeting dates? Aye?
Aye.
This is general. So if we vote, I'll vote no.
We don't meet.
I just want to clarify something.
I guess
That's all
so.
I'm doing.
Can we specify a time frame,
It may-
7 to 9?
It could be 24 times in 1 year.
Wait a minute, 3.5 years into this, and this is when you bring that up?
Designated time.
Yeah.
Can we
Some
say
good
aye or
friends.
not?
That's
I still think you need to have a voice vote on this.
Oh.
Roll call?
No,
No,
you
all
could
those
just
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
opposed. No,
Nobody's
motion
opposed.
carries,
Guess
okay.
we're gonna meet again. Okay, item number C. Motion ratifying the appointment of Brian Kratko to the Westchester Fire and Police Commission. I'm not sure if we have to,
Do we have to do that?
we didn't, it wasn't previously
Yeah,
discussed
you're
in
gonna
a
have to
cow,
waive.
We're gonna have
so
to
we
waive.
need
I'll
to
make a
waive.
motion to suspend the rules and waive the requirement to appear before a cow.
So moved.
And Brian and Tom.
Second.
Second, sorry. Got me thrown
All
off by
those
the
in
meeting
favor
minutes.
of
Suspending
suspend the rules,
rules.
say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, say no. Okay. The next will be the motion ratifying the appointment of Brian Kratko as the Police and Fire Commissioner.
So moved.
Second.
Brian, second?
Frank.
Frank. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries as well. Manager report?
Okay, with the holidays approaching quickly, just want to remind everybody that Village Hall will be closed on Tuesday, December 25th for Christmas, and Tuesday, January 1st for the New Year holiday. We'd also like to remind residents to check street parking regulations on their streets for parking during snowstorms. We're due to have our first snow here in a few days. The holiday garbage pickup schedule. Monday, Christmas Eve, and Monday, New Year's Eve will have normal garbage pickup. Tuesday, the 25th, and Tuesday, January 1st will be delayed one day, and will be picked up on Wednesday, the 26th, and Wednesday, January 2nd. Thursday and Friday of each week will have regularly scheduled pickups. Also want to remind residents that the water rate increase will go in effect beginning January 1, 2013, reflecting the increase in our water purchase rates from the City of Chicago. And those rates will be $7.23 per 1,000 gallons. Also, want to just bring to everybody's attention that the Dunkin' Donuts on Manheim has opened as of last Saturday, several weeks ahead of schedule, so please stop in and visit them. And this, from all of the village staff, we'd like to wish residents a safe and happy holiday.
Mr. Attorney, any report?
I would like to report that I have previously spoken to the village clerk and her deputy regarding getting certified copies of the tax levy ordinance and the resolution regarding the separate tax rates for the library board and the village. Due to the holiday, these have to be filed by the day after Christmas, so I'm confident I'm leaving here tonight with the certifications. I already saw the certifications at the clerk station, and those will be filed this week, so thank you.
Board members, Cab.
Our food drive's until the end of the month, so if anybody, there's still time to donate food for the food pantry. And our Toys for Tots was very successful this year. We were able to get about a little over 150 toys for the Toys for Tots. And on top of that, their toys kept on coming in for the village, and the Park District was doing one for the Children's Hospital downtown. So we were able to help promote that one as well.
Great. Thank you. Green, Wally.
Nothing for the Green Committee.
Frankie, EDC.
We spent most of the meeting going over some results from our summit meetings, and we're scheduling our next summit meeting sometime in January. We didn't have a meeting this week. It was the week before last. So,
Nikki, anything?
Yeah, 911 had a meeting, but kind of had the cart before the horse because we were going to be talking about the signs again, but the Plan Commission was having a meeting that evening, so there was really we really couldn't take any action because it was contingent on what was going to come out of the Plan Commission that evening. So now we'll have some clear direction as to which way we could go with that now.
B, anything?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Miss April.
At this Christmas time of year, I'd like to remind residents that burglaries and thefts are on an increase. We remind you to keep all valuables, jewelry, currency out of your bedrooms, off your dressers, out of the top chest drawer. Lock all your doors, including your vehicle. Also, with the weather change coming, we remind drivers to slow down, pay attention, make sure they have a full gas tank, their tires are inflated properly, and that if they're attending any parties at this time of year, they have a designated driver if they plan on celebrating with any alcohol. Remind residents also to visit the police department section of our village website. There they'll find an interactive crime map that shows all our actual crimes and arrests that we make. And also like to point out that our community relations officer has expanded his section of the web page, and we have sections that promote the Neighborhood Watch program, crime prevention tips, and a whole section for Safe Senior program.
Thank you. Gregory.
Over the last couple of weeks, I've been working on two fairly large projects, jumping in between both of them. One of them is with regards to the in-car cameras. After the installation, I've been configuring them, getting our officers used to using them. It's a little bit different than it was, but now all the marked police vehicles have in-car cameras and record their traffic stops, if not other events that require such. But it's progressed a little bit slower than I thought, trying to get some of these officers trained. Had some hardware problems, but everything's worked out. Going to be doing some training over the rest of this week. The other thing that I've been working on, I've been seeing Chief Adams more than I normally do, and I know he always tries to catch me first thing in the morning to do things over there. But we've been working on all our fire rigs now have capers, the computer-aided dispatch program. And dispatch is now communicating with them directly, providing, as I discussed before, providing the address information, allowing them to record times. Chief and I will be working on policies for his people to handle their side. We're going to work that dispatch will have certain responsibilities in making sure that information is given to the firemen in a timely manner, and that we keep up with it. But a great addition to the communications between police, fire. One other thing that I didn't realize and never mentioned before, but it's something that the chief and I had hit upon as we were testing it out, was the communication ability between the fire and police. It's something that we've never had before, specifically from radios, because we're on different radio frequencies. And I'll admit I knew about it but didn't think about it in discussions. And I was showing the chief how he as himself, as he signed in, can send a message to the sergeant in charge. He can send a message directly to dispatch. He can send a message to any of the officers. He can send a message to anybody that is signed into the system. And again, all the patrol is signed in during their shift, and all the fire rigs are signed in there. So there's always it's always nice to see a new way to communicate, specifically when there's heavy radio traffic or one of the personnel, one of the members of the staff may not have a cell phone, that you can directly reach him at that time. But to be able to request information is turned out to be a wonderful tool, and I think him and I have been talking about how we're going to utilize that to a greater extent in the future.
Great. Jimmy?
Ditto, no. Just two things real quick. In November, among the Chicago funerals that were attended, one of the things between myself, Chief Carilla, and the Hillside Fire Department and my Red Shift firefighters, we had set up our ladder trucks with the American flag on the north end of Mount Carmel Cemetery for firefighter Boyd, and I actually had numerous letters from Assistant Deputy Fire Commissioner, a couple of the different battalion chiefs, the family. One of them I'd just like to share real quick, Jim Pearl, Battalion Chief Jim Pearl, he's in charge of Special Operations Division. It says, hello Chief, one of the most amazing things about the fire service is the bond. This brotherhood that exists in each fire department that goes beyond the walls of each respective station. If you're a firefighter, you're a brother, regardless of what department you belong to. Since November 2nd, the brotherhood has been tested. I am writing to express my gratitude to you and the Red Shift members of your department for their show of support in honoring Chicago Fire Department brother Mike Boyd of Truck 28 on Thursday, November 15th for his funeral procession. Many Chicago Fire Department members and Mike's family were overwhelmed by the show of love and respect from their suburban brothers. This is what a brotherhood really means. Please convey our gratitude to your members with our wishes that all be safe. Cordially, Jim Pearl, Battalion Chief. I just wish to share that with everybody that, again, that brotherhood extends beyond just our borders in Westchester and our surrounding communities. It's a statewide brotherhood, if not a worldwide brotherhood when it really comes down to it. The other thing I wish to say tonight is keep the wreath red. The program to keep our wreaths that we hang on the front of both of our fire stations have red lights on them. That represents, as long as all the lights are red on them, it represents that we've had no fires attributed to Christmas decorations or Christmas activities. The ways of keeping that is keep your don't use extension cords, don't overload your outlets. If you choose to have a real tree, make sure you water it numerous times a day, and you look out for those dangers that you see around the house. So that's all I have.
Annie.
Good evening. First item tonight, business and contractor license renewals did go in the mail last month, and I'm happy to report we're seeing a steady inflow of those responses and payments, so everyone will have their appropriate license for the start of the new year. Secondly, budget time is just around the corner, which is exciting. Preparations for the 2013-14 fiscal budget will begin right after the new year. Department heads will be given their budget preparation materials. We'll also be in touch with the board to set up appropriate budget workshops. Additionally, we've been contacted by the University of Illinois at Chicago Graduate Program in Public Administration for their Spring 2013 course in budget preparation. Students in this course will review the village's budget document as well as our budgeting process to provide suggestions for improvements in order to implement the Government Finance Officer Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. And I've been a part of budget preparation that meets those criteria in the past, and it's just a way to make the document and that process a useful tool for all end users. Residents certainly first and foremost, as well as staff, the board, and outside agencies like our bond rating agencies and other communities. The goal is to make that budget document something that anyone can look at and have a great picture of Westchester as a community, and also our financial position, our financial goals, our non-financial goals, and how those all tie together. So it's a bit of a lengthy process to get that all implemented. And I think that having this course and these students assist us in that will, really give us a leg up on getting to that end goal sooner. So that's all I had this evening. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Dave.
Thank you, Sam. The Department of Public Works has been rather active the last few weeks. Noteworthy accomplishments have been the selection and transport of the village Christmas tree to the fire station on Roosevelt Road. Also decoration of that tree, as well as the front of the village hall and post office. We've also installed the new lighted snowflakes along Manheim Road attached to the light poles there. Since the last board meeting, we've had 5 water main breaks. We've accomplished restoration for many of them. Just a couple this past Saturday are pending restoration. Also, we've completed restoration of the 70 ash trees that have been removed so far by our tree contractor. 55 new trees have been replaced. We're also prepared now for our first winter storm, which is expected potentially this Thursday. All of our equipment is ready to roll. We've got an abundant amount of salt, so we're ready to go. Also, Waste Management has completed their last waste collection as of November 30th, so we're continuing to collect leaf bags that people are still putting out. We're also completing our evaluation and quantification of the streets scheduled for the 2013 street improvement program. And also a note on the 2012 street improvement program. That project was completed just before Thanksgiving. I think it was a very successful project. We've got final figures now. Looks like we're going to be roughly $200,000 under the contract amount. Pending payment to the contractor, there's still going to be some retainage involved, but it looks like that project came in nearly $200,000 under the contracted amount.
Thank you. Melissa.
Hello. Just a couple quick bits of information. There were 2 businesses that opened in the month of November. There were also a handful of projects that were under review. Right now we're looking at, Hampton Inn is looking at some improvements to their lobby. Westbrook Corporate Towers looking at some HVAC upgrades to the entire corporate center. And there's construction projects that have been continuing. McDonald's at Wolf Road, they've been under construction. Palmer Florist on Manheim is continuing. The Dunkin' Donuts on Manheim opened on Saturday. I heard that there were some village trustees and staff that had visited, so that's great to see people supporting local business. 31st and Wolf is continuing. And that's really it.
Thank you. Kathy, anything? Nothing? President report, just a couple of things. Want to thank our law firm, Strino, Romello, and Durkin, for their contribution to the Miracles in Progress this year. Our law firm does make a donation every year, and that was the group that was selected this year. So thank Don and yourself and the staff for doing that as well. Did receive a card from Nick's family, the Norma Ryder, who passed away, Nick's grandmother, unfortunately. So Nick received that as well. Hope all is going well. Also, we received a letter from the Westchester Place residents. Would like to thank us very much for the work that was done on Westminster. We very much appreciate getting the street paved and want to express our sincere thanks. The work that has been done thus far is wonderful, and we're grateful to have it done and signed by a number of the residents that were on Westminster. So that's a good thing as well. You know, most of us know there were, in the beginning of December, there were some sewer cover thefts. We probably had maybe 20 of them taken. And through the efforts of the police department and certainly Public Works, we were able to locate those. I know that investigation is continuing, and hopefully there'll be a charge out of that as far as the perpetrators or people responsible for that. So I know it's an ongoing investigation, but I do want to comment and thank everybody involved. So we absolutely got our caps back, which was a good thing. Driving and hitting one of the holes there, we had one incident that had happened. Had to be very dangerous, and safety is the concern. Out front in front of the Village Hall, I don't know if any of you noticed it, I know my little candle lights burned out, but I do have 26 candy canes out there with white roses and a bouquet of roses for the Sandy Hook School. If anyone wants to drop something down there as well, you're certainly welcome to do that, but that's for them. As I indicated before, it's really bothering the heck out of me, as a police officer and former board member in a school district. I know Wally and I in 92.5, and I just can't imagine that happening. I really can't. I see the little faces of the boys and girls that have been on the screen the last couple of days, and I don't know how you come back from that. I do want to indicate that I know Chief Padlock's been involved even prior to this, of looking at the reinstitution of getting our school resource officer back in the school. I think that she should be lauded for that, as she's been, before this incident even happened, try to look at some funding mechanisms with the school and us to try to get some type of school resource officer. We all been listening to the news and all the gun control things that are out there, and back and forth. It may be, and I know it's certainly difficult to find money for, but we may need to have some type of security in all of the schools that we have in town. I would hate to be the president of a location that had this happen by us. So again, as we go into the budget process and looking at that, we have to seriously consider the safety of all the children in our town, and do what we can and do what we have to do to make sure that they're protected. It's as simple as that.
You see, and I agree with you. My wife being a principal, and I won't dwell too much on it, but I think there are things that could be done.
So, like I said, I know the chief's in the middle of it right now, and it'd be premature to indicate what she's got going on, but I know she's in the middle of it with all the principals and that, so it's a good thing. Pretty much all I have, other than Christmas is around the corner, and like staff has indicated, we certainly want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, which one you have. I certainly don't want to miss any of them, but want to make sure that, again, it's the season to be happy and reinvigorate ourselves to what we're supposed to be doing here as a people. So, I'd like to have a little bit of an executive session this evening after our committee of the whole for personnel matters and real estate acquisition, if you would so indulge me. Other than that, if there's nothing else for the board meeting, I'd like a motion to second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Tommy.
Brian and Tommy.